rapid evolution of AI is introducing a plethora of unimaginable tools, and people are going wild with this. In this video, I will teach you a step-by-step way on how to build your first AI SaaS that has the potential to be a passive income for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Typescript AI. This is the landing page of the application. This page highlights all the important aspects of this project, like the ability to generate a Twitter thread, Instagram caption, and LinkedIn post using our AI. I have signed up with Clerk Authentication already, so let's click on this dashboard link here to start generating content. On this dashboard page, I have the ability to generate a Twitter thread, Instagram caption, and LinkedIn post. With the free tier, I only have about 30 points and I have to subscribe to get more points. So when I click on the get more points, it takes me to the pricing page and I would like to go for the basic plan. So I'll click on choose plan and it takes me to the Stripe payments page. So let's add our email and the card information is going to be this number here. We add a month and a year and a CVC and I will click on subscribe. So now we have 100 points added to our already existing points. We have more credits now. So to create a content, we select the type. So let's go with Twitter thread. And inside this prompt here, we can literally generate any thread of our choice. So I'll enter the prompt, thread about space. And using the power of Gemini AI, we are able to generate a thread on the fly, which the user can copy this and paste it on their Twitter, which is now X, but still called it Twitter by the way. So users can do same for LinkedIn posts and Instagram caption. And we also have, a mockup here that shows a preview of how the thread is going to look like on Twitter. I assure you of a beginner-friendly step-by-step guide on building a software as a service using Stripe for payment, Clerk for user authentication, Drizzle for storing data. Without much ado, let's get right in. These are some of the tools we will be using to build this app. First on the list is mailtrap. Mailtrap is an email delivery platform that allows you to test, send, and manage all your emails infrastructure all in one place. We are using mailtrap because of its simplicity, making it easy for developers to send emails to users. To demonstrate how it works, I have already logged in with my Gmail account. So on the dashboard page, we have varieties of features available on this platform. We will cover those in more details in the email section of this application. Mailtrap also offers an NPM package for sending emails from the client side with minimal configuration. More on Mailtrap will be discussed in these tutorials. Next on the list, we have ShardCN. ShardCN is a customizable component library for building modern web app with React and Tailwind CSS. It includes nearly every component you might need for building a modern website, such as buttons, card, dialogues, alerts, and more. You will be integrating many of these components throughout the application. Clerk is an authentication platform that provides login options via password, social identity providers, one-time email or SMS code access, and a multi-factor authentication along with basic user management. We will set up a custom hook to retrieve user information after logging in and store it inside our database. Stripe is a payment platform that allows you to accept credit cards, debit card, and popular payment method from all around the world. This will be needful and important for enabling our users to purchase points for the use on the platform. This is the documentation page for Drizzle ORM. So on this page, you can read more about the theory and how Drizzle ORM works, and the under the hood technicalities and everything that you want to know about Drizzle. But I'll focus more on the practical aspect of Drizzle. So I'll place the link to this documentation page in the description as usual to read more about Drizzle ORM. But in a nutshell, Drizzle is a lightweight TypeScript object relational mapping for SQL databases. So what it does is to provide you with a simple and intuitive API for database operations. So if you have an idea on how to write SQL codes to interact with databases, you should find this very easy to use. It also allows you to define your database schemas using JavaScript classes and decorators, which makes it easy to work with your database. So the database include MySQL, Postgres, and SQLite. Drizzle ORM works in hand with Neon. Neon, on the other hand, is just a platform for managing our databases on the cloud. So more about this will be explained when we start writing the code. So I will scroll down here and click on Postgres SQL to install Neon and Drizzle ORM for this project. So I'll copy all these commands here, move back to my code editor, and paste the code here. So the package has been installed successfully. We can now write our schemas and connect to the database. So let me minimize this terminal. And over here, we are going to create a file inside the root directory named drizzle.config.js. So inside the root directory, you're going to have drizzle.config.js. On this page, we are going to have our dialect, our schema, and our database credentials. Okay. So first thing first, let's create the skeleton for this object. So we are going to export default an object. And this object is going to house the first property is going to be the dialect. We have the dialect to be Postgres. And we have the schema here. So the second property is going to be the schema. So we define the schema. And we are going to specify the path to locate this schema. We don't have the schema yet, but we're going to create that in a second. So let's specify the path to be utils database schema.typescript. Let's go ahead and create this schema file. Inside the root directory, we are going to create a new folder named utils. Inside the utils, we are going to have a new folder named db to house all our database code. And we create a new file named schema.typescript. Inside this file, we are going to have all the schemas for the project. We're going to have user schema, subscription, and generated content. You have to start by importing all the necessary functions and types from Drizzle ORM. So we start by importing all these from Drizzle ORM PG call. We have integer, which is going to be used to define the integers columns. You have a variable character to define variable characters column. We have PG table to define the Postgres table, okay? And we have the serial, we have test, we have timestamp, and Boolean. After importing all these necessary functions and types, we are going to define our tables. So the first table is going to be the user table, and we define it this way. So you're going to have export constant, and the variable name is going to be users. So we call the PG table function, which accepts two arguments. So the first argument is going to be the table name. You're going to type users here, and the second argument is going to be an object to define all the fields for the said table. So you're going to have ID, And this ID is going to be an auto-incrementing primary key column named ID. We're going to have a serial ID dot primary key. And we have Stripe customer ID. This is going to be a unique text column for storing Stripe customer ID. Okay, so we have the text and we have Stripe underscore customer underscore ID. And this is going to be a unique field. We don't want any duplicates in this field. So we have the Stripe customer ID. All right. And next, we are going to create the email field to store the user email. We're going to have a test email, and this is going to be a not null column, and it's supposed to be a unique column as well. So we just append the unique function to the object, the test object. And next we have the name, which is having the test as well. Just name, the name of the field is name, literally. And we have points inside the user table. So the point is going to be the integer for storing the points with the default value of 50. So by default, we want to give users 50 points to test our application out before they make a decision to subscribe or purchase more points. So that's going to be an integer, and the name is going to be points, and the default value is going to be 50. 50 here. And the last field for this table is going to be created at. So we want to get a timestamp at which, this user was created, right? We have the timestamp, and we provide the column name to be created at dot default now. So we have default now. Next, we are going to create the subscription table. So for this table, we are going to have the name, define the table as subscription, right? Subscriptions, PG table. We have subscriptions to be the name of the table. And the second argument is going to be the fields. The first field that we are going to have is going to be, basically same as this one. You're going to have an auto-incrementing primary key with a column named ID. So we paste that over here, and we create a user ID. We store the user ID. This is going to be a foreign key referencing the ID column in the user table. So this user ID is going to be an integer. We are referencing the user ID from the users table. So dot references. This is a function. We get or return the user.id, and we don't want this to be null, so not null. And the next field we are going to create is going to be the Stripe subscription ID. Subscription ID. This is going to be a variable character, and the name is going to be Stripe subscription underscore ID. And the length is going to be 255 characters for the subscription ID. We don't want this field to be null, so we add the not null function. Okay. So next is going to be the plan. So we have plans for the various subscriptions, and this is going to be the field to have, or store the plans. We have a variable character, and the name is just plan. The length 50. The length of the character should be 50 and not null. And we have the status. The status is going to be a variable character. And the length of the status should be 50 and not now. The next field is going to be the current period start, which is going to store the current period for the starting of the subscription. And you're going to have a current period end, which is also going to save the period end for the subscription. We are going to charge the subscription on a monthly basis, okay? So we want to store the starting period of the subscription and the ending period of the subscription so that we can, know when the subscription has expired or not. We have the current period starts. And this is going to be a timestamp. The name is going to be current period start dot not now. And we have current period end. We have current period end to be a timestamp as well. So this is going to be similar. So I'll copy everything here, paste it at this side, and change the start to end. And the final field in this table is going to be the cancel at period. So I'll copy this and change this to cancel at period. Period end. And we are going to have cancel at period end, not null, and the default value is going to be false, a boolean, right? False. We have that here. So we have an error here saying, okay, so let's change this to boolean, not as timestamp. So we have a boolean and we are good to go. So the final schema we are going to create is going to be the generated content schema. Okay. So let's define the generated content table. So export constant generated content. And we have the PG table. Generated content to be the name of the table, and the second argument should be the fields. You're going to have an ID as usual, which is going to be auto incrementing. So we provide the ID, and we are also going to save the user key here, and we are going to have a foreign key referencing the ID from the user table as well. So we are going to copy this, paste it over here, and create these 4 fields. So we start with content. So we have content, text, content, not null. We have prompt, text, and the name of the column should be prompt. So we give it a name, prompt, not null. And we have the content type. So you're going to have 3 types of content: Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn for this project. So we create a variable character and give the column name content type. And you're going to have a length to be 50. And this is a not null field. We have created at, and this is going to be a timestamp similar to what we had in the user table. So I'll copy that and paste it over here. And with that, we just created the schemas for this application. So our next target is going to finish up the configuration file inside here and push all these schemas to Neon. to have an interface to interact with our database. So let's move back to the Drizzle config and continue with the rest of the configuration. So here we have the output. So the output is going to be Drizzle. So this is how we do it. Drizzle. And we have the DB credentials. So this is the object to hold the URL connection string of the Neon console. So we have DB credentials. And inside here we have URL and connection string. So I'll move to the Neon console and copy the URL string, paste it here so that we can continue with the rest of the code. So back to my browser, I'll search for Neon console. Click on this first link. So you have to sign up first before you can create a project. So I'll place this link inside the description so you can check it out. And once you visit this exact URL, you will be asked to sign up. So you sign up with your email and you can pick things from there. So you already have a project. I'll click on this. And inside the dashboard, we can click on this drop down here, database drop down, and create a new database. So for this project, we are going to give the database a name, Threadcraft. I already have Threadcraft. So let's say something like Threadcraft_AI and hit on the create button. You wait for a while for this to be created and we have it created. I'll copy this connection string, copy this snippet, code snippet, move back to my code editor and paste it over here. So ideally, we have to create a .m file. You're going to create that in a second. But for now, let's just, paste the connection string here and do same for the connection string. Comma here, and we are good to go. Now, the next thing we are going to do is to push these schemas to Neon console. So when we push these schemas, we will be able to click on these tables and select a database to see all the schemas that we have, right? So let's move back to the VS Code. We don't have any schemas yet, so we can see this side is empty. When I select a different project, you can see I have schemas available here and some data here. So let's move back to Threadcraft_AI, this table. So back to the code editor, we move back to package.json file. In this file, we are going to add these two scripts to the script object of the package.json file. And what these commands are going to do is to push all the schemas to the Neon console. So these are going to be the commands. So the first command is going to be named dbpush. And this command is going to be Drizzle. So let's bring the double quotation. Drizzle kit push. And we have DB Studio, which is going to be npx Drizzle kit and studio. All right. So these two commands, the first command is going to push the schemas, as I said, and the second command is going to open up a studio where we can interact with our database in a graphical user interface. So I'll give this a save and check everything one more time to go over this to make sure we have everything in place. And same for Drizzle config. I think we are good to go. So let's run the command. npm run db push. Wait for a while for this to be pushed to the Neon console. and we have a successful push. So we have the schemas being pulled from the database and all the changes has been applied. So when I move back to the Neon console and refresh this dashboard, we can see we have all these schemas. We have generated content, subscription, and user schemas. And these are the exact schemas that we created over here. We have the users, we have the subscriptions, and generated content. So things are looking great. So to test the second command, we also run npm run db studio. And this is going to spin up a studio for us. So I'll run this, wait for a while, and we have the studio up and running. So I'll hit on command on Mac OS and control on Windows. Click on this link to open it in your browser. And we have a very similar interface to Neon console, right? So we have the interface here and same interface over here as well. So it's up to you to choose which interface you would love to work with. For me, I prefer the Neon console, so you can decide which one is better for you and work with that. So I'll click on this close button to close the studio. I think we are good to go. So the next thing we are going to work on, the next thing we are going to do is to set up Clerk for our authentication. So I'll move to the layout page here and I'll move to my browser and search for Clerk docs. Click on this first link and quick start and tutorials. I'll go for Next.js. Looking at these installation steps, the first on the list is to install the Clerk Next.js. I'll copy this command and move back to my terminal, paste it over here. And this is going to install the Clerk Next.js for us. And back to the documentation page, we have to set up an environment variable. So we are going to create a .env.local file. But before we do that, I want us to move to Clerk dashboard. On this dashboard, you have to sign up first if this is your first time opening this dashboard. You will create a project. So create an application and give the application a name, Threadcraft AI. Okay, we have Threadcraft AI. And we will create the application. So we have the application created. So back to this documentation page, I'll refresh this page and on the .local.env section, environment variable section, I'll click on this drop down and select Threadcraft AI. So we are going to create this file inside our root directory. And this is going to be, we paste the file here and add it to the gitignore file. So we have to add .env.local so that we don't mistakenly commit this to GitHub. So we have that. And we are going to copy everything here. The next public Clerk, publishable key, and the Clerk secret. You paste that inside the .env.local file. So the next on the list is to add a middleware to our application. So the middleware grants you access to the user authentication state throughout our application. So we have, so we are going to create a middleware here inside the root directory, middleware.typescript, and we are going to copy this code here, paste it inside the middleware. We save this and we add the fourth step. So the fourth step is saying we should add a Clerk provider to our component. So what we are going to do here is move back to our layout page, and inside the layout page, so we are going to import Clerk provider from Clerk Next.js. Clerk Next.js. So we have that here, Clerk provider. And for this project, we are going to render everything in a dark theme. We are going to have a dark mode for the entire application. So we will need to install Clerk themes as well. Okay. So to install Clerk themes, we have to run this command here, npm yarn add Clerk theme. I hope I had that right. So let's confirm that. So Clerk themes and check it here. Okay, so it's supposed to be themes, not theme. So I'll copy that and paste it here. So we are going to import that, and we have the dark. We're going to import dark mode from Clerk theme. Clerk themes. Oops. Clerk themes. All right. So things are looking great, and we scroll down a little bit, and right before the HTML and the body tag, we create the Clerk provider. So the next thing we are going to do is to work on the sign in and sign up page. So when we move to this section of the documentation, this one here, the link will be placed in the description as usual. So we have the steps to build your own sign in and sign out pages for Next.js app with Clerk, right? So to build a sign up page, we have to create a route. And for this project, we are using the Next.js app directory and not the pages router. So I'll click on this. So we are going to copy this and paste it over here. So inside the app directory, we are going to create this folder. Have sign up like this, and inside this folder, we are going to create page.tsx and copy this code here, paste it right here inside the sign up page. So for this project, we want to customize the sign up page, right? So to do that, I would like us to change this page to sign up page, and inside this return here, we are going to have a div. Okay, we're going to have a div, and this div is going to have a class name. So for this class, we want to place everything in the center, right? So we have flex, justify center, item center, and we want the minimum height to fit the screen. So we have the minimum height to be a screen, and the background should be black. We have this customization, and inside the sign up component from Clerk Next.js, we have these properties that we can add. So one being appearance, and this appearance object is to customize the sign up page to your own choice. So we target the element object inside the appearance object and target the form button primary. So we have a form button primary, and this is going to be BG, background color of blue. And when we hover on this button, we want to have a different variant of the blue color. So we're going to have background blue 600, text small, and the case should be normal, the normal case. Save this. I think everything is looking great over here. And we create a different route for the sign in. So we follow the same procedure. We scroll down here, we have the sign in page. We copy this, open the app folder and create this folder. we have the sign in and create a page.tsx file. We have page.tsx, and this is also going to be the sign in page for the project, right? Sign in. So basically, we are going to have the same code here. I'll copy everything in the sign up and paste it in the sign in and change the sign in to sign up to sign in, sorry. So we have sign in, and this is supposed to be sign in page. I'll give this a save, and we are done creating the sign in and sign up for the project, right? So we need a button to navigate to this sign in or sign up route to spin up the modal for a user to sign in on Clerk Authentication. So the next thing we are going to do is to create the navigation bar component. This navbar here. Let me search for the project. We have Threadcraft, Netlify. This navbar here. So we have the logo, we have the title, all these links, and the Clerk Authentication icon here, and the user profile icon here after the user has signed up or signed in. So let's work on the navbar and create this landing page and move to the other pages. So for the navbar, we are going to create a new folder named component inside the root directory. So we have component, and we are going to create a new folder, a new file instead, named navbar.tsx. So this is going to be the navbar for the project or the application. This is a client component, so we are going to have use clients imported at the top here, and import link from next link. We are going to need this. So from Clerk Next.js, we want to import all of these, right? So import all these from Clerk Next.js. So the first thing you're going to import is the sign in button. We need this button to be able to spin up the modal for signing up. Sign up button. We need the user button after a user has logged in. We need the sign out button to sign out a user. We also need the signed in. So sorry, the signed out button is a state to check if a user has signed out, and the signed in is a state to check if the user has signed in. And we have the user authentication, which is an object that contains all the information after a user has authenticated. And we are going to import useState and useEffect from React. useState and useEffect. So we export a function named navbar. And this navbar, we are going to get a user ID from the useAuth. So the useAuth is a hook that contains varieties of objects. So we have the useAuth hook initialized here. And inside this useAuth hook, we have all these properties. We have user ID and so much, we have actor, get token, and all these objects. But we are interested in user ID for now and have this state. So you're going to have a state to check if the menu is open or if it's scrolled. So when we check this project here, I turn to mobile view, we can see we have this menu showing here. So we want to build a state to check whether this menu has been opened or closed, so that we can, change the icon here and the function here to close or open the menu. And the scroll state is to check if the user is scrolling on the application. So that we can have this subtle effect here that shows or makes the navbar stands out, right? Back to code, we create those states. So you're going to have the is menu open. We have set is menu open. We have use state, false. By default, we want to have a false. And the constant for the is scrolled. Set is scrolled. Oops. We have use state, and that is also going to have a false by default. All right. So next, we are going to create a use effect. So this use effect is going to control the state whether a user has started scrolling on the application, so that we can have this effect on the navbar. So we create a constant named handle scroll. It's going to be a function. And inside this function, we are going to set a scrolled, the state we created over here, to window.scroll on the y-axis. So the window object is having this property, scroll y. As soon as a user starts scrolling on the app, we are going to have this value updated in real time by the window object. So we want to detect if this value is greater than 10. And if that is the case, it's going to return a boolean, so true. Then we set the scroll to true and show this effect here. Right? So to demonstrate this, we can have we can log the scroll y on the console. So let's have something like console.log. Before I do that, let me just return an empty div, doing nothing for now, and log console.log. We have window.scroll y. Move back to page, and you're going to import navbar. So when I move back to localhost port 3001, refresh this page and inspect, check the console. We have 0 for the initial value. As soon as I start scrolling, provided we have enough elements on the screen. So we have to add more elements to this page so that we'll be able to scroll and see the value here. So I'll create a paragraph, write here a paragraph, and fill them with a random text. Save it, refresh the page, and boom, we have a value here. So this is updating in real time. All right, things are looking good. Back to the navbar, we can continue working on this scroll functionality. So as soon as the window.scroll y is greater than 10, we update this state to be true. And we have to add this code here, window.add event listener, to listen to a scroll event. So anytime there is a scroll event, we want to call the handle scroll. This is what we have here. We have that here. And inside this use effect, we are going to add this code that is going to remove the scroll event listener after we are done using it. So return. We are going to have window.remove event listener. We have the scroll and handle scroll. All right. So inside this return, let's get rid of this. We are going to have header. We create a header element. And inside the header element, we are going to have this class name for the navbar. So we add a class name inside here. So we want to use a template string because we will be rendering some classes conditionally. So this navbar is supposed to have a first property. We have first top 0, left 0. We want this to stick to the top, and we have right 0 as well. And the Z index is 50 because we want it to be on top of all the elements on the page. We add a transition or duration 300 milliseconds for this effect. So when I scroll, we have this fade effect here. So that's what we just created, the transition. And when the user has scrolled on the application, so we are going to render this background color here if the user has scrolled on the application. Okay, so we have that check here. Is scrolled. If that is the case, we want to render this. Okay, so this is supposed to be inside the template string. Is scrolled. We want to have this. We want to have a background color of gray, 980, and a backdrop of blur. So we have backdrop, blur. So you want to blur it. So let's change this M to MD. And anything other than this, you want to have the background to be transparent. So you can see by default, we have the background to be transparent. And as soon as we start scrolling, we have the effect here. So this is going to make sure to handle that for us. Awesome. And inside the header, we are going to create a nav element. And inside the header, we are going to create a nav element. So this nav element is going to have a class name, container, MS Auto, because we want to center everything, and PX of 4. And so I think I should save this and move back to the page.tsx to test everything out. So this is what we are going to do. Before we test what we have, let me add just a test to expand of Fedcraft AI. Fedcraft AI. And back to the layout, we want to make this application a dark theme. So let's add these classes to the body. So we are going to get rid of every class here and replace it with this. Okay. So we have background of black, we have text white, and this property. And also change the font of this application. So I'll get rid of everything here. Replace it with the Inter font. So you have to import Inter from Next. Font Google. So we have that in place. Back to the page, we uncomment the navbar out and check what we have on the localhost port 3001. So we just have Threadcraft, the text here. And we have the back to the navbar. On a small screen, we want to have the padding to be 8, small screen and above, and padding on the vertical as it should be 4. And we also have from small screen upwards, the padding on the vertical as it should be 6. So we have that space created over here. So next, we are going to have this div here. And this div is going to contain all this. So you're going to have the Threadcraft logo and all the elements on the right hand side. So we give it a class name, flex wrap, justify between, item center, mask width, 6 Excel, MS Auto, and create another div for the logo and the text. So the actual logo and the text of the logo. So you have the text here in a span. You have to put everything in a link because when the user click on this logo, you want to send them to the home page. We have a link. Oops, a link here. Put this span inside the link and give it an href to direct us to the home page when the user click on this. And the link is going to have a class. Okay, we're going to have a flex and item center. You want to center the items and give a space between the logo and the text. So this div is also going to have these classes, a flex and item center. The logo is going to be a zap icon. So for this project, we are going to use Lucid React icon. So Lucid React icons contains every single icon that you may need in your application. So for the logo, it's just a zap icon. So you have zap, and we are just going to use this for the logo. I'll call the zap icon here from Lucid React. So let's import it over here. Import from Lucid React. So you have to install this first. Okay. Copy this. Install Lucid React. And we can call the zap icon here. So from Lucid React, we can call the zap icon now. And over here, you want to style the zap icon. You want the width and height to be 8 and change the text to blue 500. Let's save this and move back to the page. We have everything looking great here. The only thing left here is to increase the size of this text. So we have to make sure it looks exactly like this one. Back to the span, we're going to add these classes. We're going to have a class name test Excel. And from a small screen upwards, we want to have the text to be 2XL. Font should be bold and the text should be white. I save that and move back to, yes, we have the text showing beautifully. So Threadcraft AI. Awesome. So next, let's create a button that is only going to be shown on a mobile screen to help the user navigate. So you're going to have a hamburger icon. And so this is what I'm talking about. This icon here. So let's create that button. It's going to have the following class properties. Let's add them and add the rest of the elements. So we have class name, and we want to hide this from small screen upwards. Text white, focus outline none. And when the user click on the button, we add an on click. We want to show the menu. We have set is menu open, 2 is menu open. So we have that. And this is going to open the menu when it is closed and close it when it is opened. So let's render the respective icons for each state. When the menu is open, what icon do we want to show? If the menu is open, we definitely want to show the close button. We're going to have X. It's a button from Lucid React and provide a class name, width of 6 and height of 6. And when the menu is open, we want to just show the menu icon with same classes. Paste that here. Awesome. So we can save this and move to the localhost port 3001, minimize it, and let's see what we have. So we have the menu here, the menu icon. When I click on this, nothing is going to show because there is no menu to render. But the toggle state is working perfectly fine. Awesome. So next, we are going to create a div that is going to hold all the menu items for us. So this div is going to have a class name, and this is going to be a template string because we want to render some classes conditionally. So we have a width of full, SM with the width should be auto. So from small screen and upwards, we want the width to be auto. And we want to conditionally render the hidden state. So when the menu is open, menu open. We want to have a block class, so meaning we want to show all the menu items. Else, we want to hide them. So that is what this div is doing for us. And we want to have these classes on the small screen and upwards. We want to have a block, margin top of 4, SM, margin top of 0. So from small screen and upwards, we want to have a margin top of 0. So we save that, and inside this div, we are going to have the menu items. So we create a div. Give it a class name, flex column. These are going to contain all the menu icons for this project. And flex row, we want to display within a row form. From small screen and upwards, we want to have item center, and the space on in between the icons are supposed to be X. We have space X. And we are going to render the menu items. So we create this array to hold all the menu items. So the first item is features. The second item is pricing. We have docs, and the third item is docs. Dot map. So we are looping through every item and rendering them on the navbar. So we could have created an array over here to display all these, but they are the same. So we can move this array here from this side and create a separate variable for the arrays and loop through them over here. So we want to render each of the elements as a link, and this is what we want to do. We want to have a key. So the key is going to be the item name, and the href is going to be this. So / whatever the name of the item is. So item dot lowercase. So if we are rendering the features, the link is going to be features, same for pricing and docs. And we have a class name or the link. The class name is going to be this. You're going to have a text gray of 300. When you hover on this link, you want to have a text of white and a transition color when we hover on the nav links. So I'll have that class pasted over here. Text gray 300, hover text white and transition colors. Inside the link, let's render the item. So I have the item here rendered, and we have this span here. So this span is going to show this effect. When I hover on a link here, this side here, we have this effect. See, this effect, a div that shows a background color transitioning from position 0 all the way up to the end here. So it's a cool effect. Let's add that. It's going to be a span, and I'm going to copy that, paste it over here, and give it a save. So we move back to localhost port 3001. We can see that effect taking place over here. Awesome. So after displaying all the links, we want to conditionally show the dashboard link only if a user has logged in, right? So to do that, we are going to use we're going to have the user ID that we got from the use auth hook from Clerk. This user ID, we are going to check. So if and only if there is something inside the user ID or there is a value available in the user ID, we want to render this link. So that's all what this is saying. We want to render this link, and the link is going to be dashboard. And it's going to have the same effect when we hover it. So I'll add the span here, and the link is going to have the same class name as what we had here. I'll copy that. And I will also add a link. So we are yet to create all these pages, okay? So don't worry about the pages for now. So the page for the dashboard is going to be on generate. So when a user clicks on this dashboard, we want to send them to the generate page. We don't have all these pages yet, but we are going to create them to be able to navigate to each page respectively. So we have the dashboard, which is going to be rendered only if a user has signed up. So we don't have it showing here because we haven't signed up. And next, we are going to have the sign out component. Okay. So this sign out component is coming from Clerk, the one we imported over here. And we are going to check if the user has signed out. So if the user has signed out, we want to show these links. Okay. We want to show the sign in and sign up link. That is only if the user has signed out or the user hasn't authenticated with us yet. So we are going to have the sign in button from Clerk, and the mode, we want it to show as a modal. And inside the sign in, we are going to have a button named sign in. So we have a button here with all these classes. So the text color is gray. We have the hover effect to be white and transition colors and all these properties. And we are going to have the sign up button, the sign up button to be a button as well. So we are going to have that button here with all these class names. So we have the sign up button created. So these are going to be shown only if the user hasn't authenticated with us yet. On the other hand side, if the user has signed in, we want to show this icon here, this beautiful icon here that has the user profile and other informations. So we are going to have that here. So signed in, and we call the user button. So that is also coming from Clerk. We get this button after a user has logged in. And the appearance of this button we have the appearance object or property is going to have this style. So on the element property, we want to change the avatar box to width of 10 and height of 10. And with just that, we are done with our navbar. So let's move back to localhost port 3001 to see what we have. So we have the, when we scroll down, we see the background changing. We have the Threadcraft logo here. We have the features, pricing docs, and sign-in link here. We have the sign up button here. So let's click on the sign up button. And it shows us this modal to sign up to the application. So very soon we are going to create a hook that is going to get all the information from the sign-in user and save it inside our database. So we're going to create a hook for Clerk, and in the hook, it returns an object after a user has signed in successfully. We're going to use that information, save it inside our database. So back to the code. For the sign up button, we are supposed to make it a modal as well. When we check here, it takes us on a new page. So I have to add the mode to modal as well. Give it a save and move back to this application, refresh the page, click on sign up, and boom, we have a modal. Awesome. Things are looking great. So next, we are going to create a hook that is going to help us save all the user information inside our database using Clerk hooks. So to start with the hooks, I will search for Clerk webhooks. So Clerk webhooks. And I will click on this link here. And move to this side. Awesome. So this is what we are looking for on this page. So this is the steps to set up a hook. And when we go through these steps, we are going to be able to set up a webhook for Clerk authentication, right? Awesome. So the first thing we are going to do is to set up ngrok. So ngrok is a software that is going to help us expose this localhost port 3001 to the internet so that we will be able to test the webhook locally. Without that, we can't use this localhost port 3001 to test our webhook with Clerk. So let's get ngrok installed. I'll search on ngrok installation and I'll click on this link here. On this page, it shows us all the operating system we can install ngrok on. We have the Windows and we have Mac OS, Linux, Docker, and others. So I am on Mac OS, so I'll click on this tab. If you're on Windows, you click on this tab and follow the installation procedure. I've already installed this, so there is no need to install it on my PC again. So to test whether we have ngrok installed or not, I will open my terminal, type this command here, ngrok. If you have it installed, we are going to see all this information appeared in our terminal. So now to expose the localhost port 3001 to the internet, so the port might be different in your case. It could be 3000 or any other port number at all. You just have to type here ngrok http and followed by the port number. So in this case, I'll type 3001. Hit enter. And we have a forwarding URL. So this is the URL connecting to our localhost port 3001. So I'll copy this exact URL and paste it in my browser. Search for this. You can see we have the exact code in localhost port 3001. So this is the URL that we are going to use to test the webhook out. So once we have the URL, let's create these folders. So inside the app directory, we are going to create a new folder named API. inside the API folder, we are going to have a folder named webhooks. So for this project, we are going to have two webhooks. The first one is going to be Clerk, and the second one is going to be Stripe. So I'll create two folders, the first being Clerk, and the second one being Stripe. So we have these two hooks created. And inside the Clerk folder, we are going to create a file named route.ts. So this, we are following this installation process. So we have set up the ngrok and we have forwarded the localhost port 3000 to the internet. So now we have to create an endpoint, and that is what we just did, creating the Clerk API webhooks inside the app directory. We have done that, and the next thing we are going to do is to copy this localhost variables to our .env.local file. So back to this file, we will paste this. So the next public Clerk publishable key, I think we already have this. I'll get rid of this one here. We have the secret as well. We have the secret as well. I'll get rid of that. And yeah, everything is okay. So we have the webhook secret. So these are the keys that are going to be used to, communicate with the Clerk webhook. So you have to make sure we have this installed. And the next step is to create a middleware. We already have the middleware created. So this is the middleware. We created it when we were setting up the sign in and sign up page. You can move back to that section in the video and watch how we did it. And we are going to install this package. So you will use this SVIX to verify webhook signatures. So I'll get that installed over here. Awesome. So we have the SVIX installed. So what is next on the list? We have create an endpoint in your application. Okay. So we have created that, the webhook route. We've created that already. So we are going to copy everything here and paste it inside the the webhook route. So back to our code. In this file here, we paste everything here. Awesome. So what is going to happen is we are going to copy this exact URL here, the one exposed to the internet, and append API/webhook/Clerk. So anytime a new user signs up, we are going to be directed to this exact URL. So this is a post request, and this is going to run as soon as a user signs up, and we are going to check if we have a web secret, and we already have that. We copy that. So that is created here. And if you don't have any webhook secret, you're going to throw an error and get all these headers, all this payload, and the SVIX ID, the timestamp and signature. We do the check-ins here if they exist, else we are going to throw an error. So the body contains the information of the user. You're going to get that saved in the variable, and we are going to do whatever you want to do with it inside our application. For now, we are just logging everything to the console. So to test this out, we have to create an event inside webhook, and this event is going to help us log the right type of data for this application. So I'll move to Clerk dashboard, this page here, and I'll go to configuration, scroll the way down to webhooks, this page here. On this page, we are going to add an endpoint, right? We are going to add an endpoint. So the endpoint is going to be this localhost port 3001 URL that we just exposed to the internet. So back to the Clerk dashboard. All right, so here we are going to add an endpoint. I'll click on add endpoint and copy this URL here, paste it here, and add this path. So we are going to have API, webhooks, and Clerk, right? So we have API, webhooks, and Clerk. So I'll give this a save. But before we save this, let's add the event. So the event we are interested in is when a user is created, right? So I'll select everything here. The user.created event, user.created at edge, deleted and updated. So these are the events that we are interested in. I'll click on create. So let's create them. And we have our first webhook created. So to test this out, we have to sign up with a new user. So we have the object being logged in the console. So we are going to see everything right here in our terminal. So scroll this all the way up to get more space for us to see what the webhook is returning for us. So back to this section, localhost ports no, back to this URL, the one is post on the internet. We are going to sign up with a Gmail account. I'll click on sign up and continue with a Google address. Continue. So we are supposed to see a user icon here, and let's go check the Clerk dashboard to see what we have. All right, so we have the user icon displayed here. Let's check the Clerk dashboard and refresh this page. So the error rate is 0.0. So let's move back to the terminal to see what we have. So we have an error here. Let's scroll the way up to, learn about the error. Okay, so it says, so please add a webhook secret. So I thought we added the webhook secret. Let's check that one. So in the .m file, okay. So there's one more thing that we have to add before this can work. So let's go get the webhook secret. So back to the Clerk dashboard. On this endpoint page, when we scroll all the way down, we have a sign-in secret over here. So when I click on this eye icon, it's going to display for me this webhook secret. So I'll copy that and move back here, replace it with this one. Give it a save, and fingers crossed, we should get a successful, hook creation. All right, so let's test this out. So back to the this URL here. I'm going to refresh the page and log out. So let's go to the Clerk dashboard and get rid of the just login user. So back to users tab. So on the users tab, it lists for us all the users that are signed up to the platform. So I'll just get rid of the user here, click on this and delete user. Awesome. So I'm going to sign up again with the same email and check if we have the webhook created. All right, so let's check this out. Back to localhost port 3001 and looks like we have something. Awesome. So the webhook is running. We have the user data and we have the email address, Mens Albert here, and any other information that we would need from the logged in user, the given name, the profile, and everything at all. So we are going to need this to insert the new user inside our database. Okay, so I'll move back here. And what do we have to do next? Okay, so next we are going to create the actions. We have to create an action to save the new user inside our database. So over here in the webhook, Clerk webhook, we are going to add something here. So what you're going to do here is to uncomment these out. So what you're going to do here is to check for these two types, user created and user updated. So if these two events are being triggered, we want to save the new user inside our database or update the user inside our database. So we are going to create an if statement and have this check. So event.type, if the event.type is equal to user.created, or if the event type equals user updated, we want to do the following. So the first thing we want to do is to distract this information from the event.data. So as I mentioned, this data event here contains all the information about the user. So let's distract some of this information. So from event.data, we are going to distract the ID, the email address, first name, and last name. And over here, we are going to create a variable for the email. So the email is an object. So we have to get the actual email by accessing this array. So email addresses 0, and on the first index, we get the actual email address. And also for the name, we are going to create a concatenation for the first name and second name. So we have a template string here, and we are going to write first name and second name. So we are going to realize these are the information that we are going to need in the create or update user function to insert the user inside our database. So once we have these variables created, you're going to have an if statement to check if the email exists, because we only want to insert a new user or update a user if there is an actual email. So you're going to have a try catch. And we have the error object. Inside the try catch, we are going to have this function here: await, create, or update user. And we pass in the ID, the email, and the name. Name. Awesome. So we have that. And in the catch block, we are going to console.log this error. So console.error. You're going to have this error here that is going to say error creating or updating user. Updating user. And we log the actual error and return a new response. Error processing user data. You have a status 500. So you're going to log. So we have that. And this function is supposed to be created, okay, in the actions before we can, use it. So back in the utils folder, we are going to create this file named actions.txt. And before we work on the actions, we need this file here, db-config.jsx. And inside this function, we are going to export the database object so that we can use it in all the actions page. Okay. So we are going to import Neon. We need that from Neon database serverless. We are going to import Drizzle. From Drizzle ORM Neon HTTP. And we are going to import all the schemas. We have that, and we create a constant named SQL to hold the Neon, server object. So we process.env. So we have to create a process.env to store the URL. So you have process.env .database database URL. So I'll have that here and paste it here. And, copy the URL here. So in actual sense, after we are done pushing all the schemas to the Neon console, you can delete this file to prevent yourself from exposing your database URL. Because you only need this to, deploy the schemas to the Neon console. So after we are done with that, you can get rid of this file. And we are going to have the URL here. Save it. And back to dbconfig. We are going to export the database instance. So export constant db, which is going to be Drizzle, and we pass in these parameters. So we have SQL and the schema object. So this is how we do it. I'll move back to the actions to create the create or update user inside the actions file. So this is going to be a very simple function. So you're going to export async function and create the function name. The function name is going to be create or update user. And the parameters that we are going to need is the Clerk user ID, Clerk user ID, string. We have the email to be string, and we have the name to be string as well. So let's create the body of the function. But before we do that, let's call the function here, create or update user. Awesome. So we have the function imported. Let's write the body of the function. So as usual, you're going to put everything in a try catch block. And inside this try block, we are going to create a constant that is going to get the existing user. So we first want to fetch the existing user and see if we are going to get something from the database. And if that is the case, we want to update, right? We want to update. So we have existing user equals await db. So we have to first import the database from the config file that we created, dbconfig, and also import all these from Drizzle ORM. So you're going to import EQ. We are going to know the uses of these functions in a second. EQ, SQL, and descending order from Drizzle ORM. And finally, we are going to import all the schemas from schemas. So we have users, subscription, generated content. I'll give that a save and move back here. So we have db.select. So we want to select from the user table, from users table, sorry. And we want to check wherever the user.stripe customer ID is equal to the Clerk user ID, because we are saving this Clerk user ID in the customer ID field over here in the schema. We have the Stripe customer ID. So that is going to be the ID we are going to use to check whether we have an existing user. So that's where the EQ function comes in. So the EQ function is to compare two variables to see if they are the same. And that is going to return a Boolean. And users.stripe customer ID, we compare that with Clerk user ID. And we have .limit 1 and .execute. So that's is going to be the variable to check whether we have an existing user. So next, we check if existing user exists. If the value is true, we want to update the user. Okay. So this is going to be the code to update the user. So you're going to create a constant to hold the updated user, and we want to update the user collection, right? And set the name and email. So these are the columns that we want to update: the name and user. Wherever the Stripe customer ID equals Clerk ID, return and execute, log the updated user, and return the updated user. So the next step here is to create a new user if there is no existing user to be updated, right? So that's what you're going to have here. And you're going to create a constant new user, and you're going to have the await db.insert. So you want to insert inside the user's data or table with these values. So what are the values that we want to insert inside this user collection? You want to have the email, you want to have the name, the Stripe customer ID, and that's going to be Clerk user ID. And by default, we want to give the user 50 points to test out the application before they make any decision to purchase more points. And we add the dot returning and dot execute. You save that. And we are going to log the new user created to the console for debugging purposes. So console.log, and you have new user created. You have new user, a new user object, and the error side is you're going to have this as the error. Let me copy this and paste it over here. So we have the error. So there's one more thing before we exit this page to test whether the new user is going to be inserted inside our database or not. We are going to send a new user a welcome email address using mailtrap. Okay, so let me have a comment here. Send welcome email to new users. Okay, so we are going to use mailtrap for this. Okay, and to test this out, I will create a file inside the root directory before we create the function to send the email. I'll create a new file in the root directory named index. Oops, where is the file? Named index.mjs. So inside this file, we are going to have the mailtrap set up to test whether we can see an email or not. So this is what I'm going to do. First thing first, let's move to mailtrap dashboard. So I'm going to search for mailtrap, and this is going to open the dashboard for us. So to get the dashboard, you visit this URL, and you'll be asked to sign up if you don't have an account. And as soon as we are done signing up, we are going to be ushered with this dashboard. Okay, so we have varieties of features in mailtrap. You have the ability to send an email. You have the email marketing, which is a new feature being added to mailtrap. So what we are interested in this dashboard is sending domains. So you can add one domain in the free tier account to be able to send emails on your own custom domain. But for this project, we are just going to go with the default domain, which is demomailtrap.com. So this is going to be the domain to send our emails. So over here, we have all this information. So let's click on the integration tab. And click on traditional stream, integrate. And over here, we have all the credentials to set up mailtrap. We have the host, address, we have the port, username, password, auth, and all this information. And we have a code snippet. Good examples that you can just So mailtrap is having a package that can be used to send email at the client side. So to use that, I'll search on mailtrap npm, and on this page we can install the mailtrap package to be able to send email with ease. I'll copy this, move back to my terminal, and paste it here to get it installed. Awesome. So we have it installed, and we are going to import mailtrap client from mailtrap. And over here, we are going to create these three variables. So the first variable is going to be a constant to hold the token. The second variable is going to be a constant to hold the sender email. And the fourth constant is going to be the recipient address. Constant recipient email. So for the token, we are going to get that over here. We copy this password to be our token. We copy that back to this side. I'll paste the token. And the sender email, since we are using the mailtrap.com domain, we are going to send it from the hello@domain mailtrap.com. And finally, the recipient address is just going to be my email address. So mensalbert@gmail.com. So we have that here. Awesome. So let's write the code. The next thing we are going to do is to check if the token exists. So if token exists, we want to run this piece of code. Else, we want to throw a new error. So throw a new error, and the error is going to be mailtrap token environment variable is not set. Else, we create a variable for the client. So to initialize the client equals new mailtrap client. And here we are going to pass in the token as an argument. Token, and create a constant for the sender, which is going to be, so we have the name. So let's give the sender a name, mailtrap test. And we have email to be sender email. So we have the send function available on the client. So I'll call client.send, and inside this function, we are going to have all these. So the first thing is going to be the from. So who is this from? We pass in the sender. To. So the to is going to have an email, objects, and the property. So recipient email. We have the subject. It's going to be hello from mailtrap. And we have a test that says welcome to Threadcraft AI. So this is just a simple test message, but this can be complex by sending an HTML template to make it really professional and beautiful for your application. So we have the object, and we have .then, console.log, and we have catch console.error. Awesome. So now we can test this out. So to test this out, we are going to have node index.mjs. And we have a success true message ID. So when I check my email, I have this mailtrap message sent to me. Awesome. We can create the function to actually send an email when a new user has been signed up. So inside the utils, I am going to create a new file named mailtrap.txt. So before we write any code here, let's create this environment variable. So we are going to have mailtrap API token, and that is going to be this token, or the token we have available in your dashboard. So I will paste that here, and we are good to go. So inside the mailtrap Typescript file, we're going to have all this code here, which I'm going to copy and explain it line by line, since we have already created a similar code in the index.mjs. So inside this mailtrap.typescript, we are going to create a variable named client, and we initialize the mailtrap like this, because this is going to run on the server and we are going to get the window undefined error. So we have to initialize it this way. We create a constant very similar to what we did at the index. Over here, we import the mailtrap, create a client, provide the token, and we create the actual function to send the emails. So we check if we don't have any window.undefined error. If we pass that, we check if the client is not initialized. We initialize it here, and we have the sender, Tradecraft AI. The email domain is hello@domain mailtrap. So if you have your own custom domain set up, you can replace that here, and we can send the actual email after a user has logged in. So this is the HTML template. As I mentioned, this was just a test. Over here, you can go wild by creating your own HTML template to make it look really professional and beautiful. So as we can see, integrating mailtrap is very easy and straightforward. We give this a save, and back to the actions. We are going to call this function, send welcome email. Let's call that function here, send welcome email, and it accepts two arguments, the email and the name. Give that a save, and I think we are good to go. So let's test this all out to see if you're going to get a new user inserted in our database, and we continue with the rest of the application. So back to the Clerk dashboard. Let's refresh this page. Delete this user. And over here, we are going to create a new user. So let's sign up one more time using our Gmail account. Click on continue. So let's check to see if you have the new user created inside the database and we don't have any error at the terminal. Looks like we have the new user created. Beautiful. And let's check our database. Refresh. And boom, we have a new user. So I always get excited when we get things done on the first try without going through any errors and stress. You get me? So the next thing we are going to work on is the landing page. So back to the page .tsx. We can get rid of everything here. We don't want to see this code, these ones here. Let's get rid of them. And have a clean, fresh page to work on. Awesome. So let's create the home page. So we are going to have a parent div with these classes. So with regards to the styling of this project, I'm not going to spend more time explaining all the CSS and Tailwind styles, which is going to prolong this video as a result. So I'll copy most of the code and explain things to you line by line. So we have this parent div That's going to position everything correctly, have the background color and all that. And right after the header, we are going to have the main div. You have the main div, and the main div is having this class as well. We paste that here. Inside the main element, we are going to have this div to have the Threadcraft AI. So to add this animated icons and the text over here. So back to the main div, main section. I'll copy all the decorative elements, paste them over here. So we need all these icons. So the sparkle icons, the zap icon, and the trending app icon. All these are going to come from Lucid React. We're going to import the sparkle icons, the zap icon, and the trending app icon. We give that a save. Sparkles, not sparkle. Awesome. So let's check what we have on the screen. Localhost port 3000. So we have these icons. So next, let's work on the hero section, which is going to contain the actual text and the rest of the other elements in the homepage. So let's copy this div here, which is going to create the hero section for us. And for this section, we are going to need a button. You have to import the button, the link, and also the rocket icon. So I am going to import rocket icon. Import link from next link, and import button. So this button is going to come from ShardCN. So let's move back to the browser, and on the ShardCN page, let's search for a button. So we have button. Copy this command and paste it over here. And we can now import this button since we have created it. Let's import button. From component UI button. So as soon as we installed this button, we had a new folder created here, UI, inside the component directory to store all the to house all the components that we are going to install from ShardCN. So now everything is set for the hero section. Move back to the localhost port 3001. Refresh the page. And boom, you have this over here. Beautiful. So let's work on this next. The supercharge your social media presence with all these cards, this section here, and this last part here. So I'll copy that as well. Back to the code editor. Minimize this hero section and create the card section or the feature section. So we are going to have that copied and pasted over here. So let's import Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn icon from Lucid React. So we're going to need Twitter icon, Instagram icon, and LinkedIn icon. So I think with that, we can check if you have it on the screen. We have it at localhost port 3001. And the next section is going to be the benefits section. And the last section is going to be call to action section. So these are the benefits section. Let's copy that and paste it over here. And call the check cycle icon. So all these are, basic Tailwind CSS styles and components. So I wouldn't spend much time explaining this into details, which I mentioned earlier on that is going to prolong this video. So let's focus on the business logic, and the styles can, be figured out as you read it line by line. Beautiful. So we have the benefits section created. So finally, let's create the call to action section. So the call to action section requires these. So let's first import the arrow right icon from Lucid React. Arrow right icon. And we are going to import sign up button from Clerk. So sign up button, sign up button. Oops. From Clerk Next.js. And we are going to import auth from Next.js server. Next.js server. So let's initialize the auth. So we create a constant and we initialize the auth, which is going to have all these objects. So we are going to distract them. The objects that we need, so the only object we need here is the user ID. I'll just distract the user ID and that will be it. And we have the call to action section created beautifully. So next we are going to work on the pages, the pricing page and the dashboard page. Inside the app directory, I'm going to create a new folder, pricing. And have the page file created with TSX. All right. Awesome. So on this page, we are going to set up the pricing page. So this is how the pricing page looks like. So we are going to have the pricing plans as a title here and, the type of plans that we have in the system. So we have the basic, pro, and enterprise. So let's import use client here because this is going to be a client component. And we are going to create an array of objects to hold all the pricing plans. You're going to have the basic plan, the amount, the price, and the features. So I'll copy that. And inside here, paste it over here. So we have the basic plan, the pro, and we have the enterprise. So these are the arrays of objects containing the pricing plan. Let's create a component for this page. So you're going to have a spot, default, function, pricing page. Oops. Pricing page. And we are going to return these divs. So let's have this div to be the parent div of this whole page and close this div. Inside this div, we are going to import the navbar. So we have the navbar imported. And we are going to have a main element to hold with the title and these cards. And I'm going to copy the main element and paste it over here. So you have the main element copied. And inside this main element, we are going to have the header for this page, which is going to be pricing plans. I'll paste that here, give it a save, move back to localhost port 3001 and refresh this page. So when we click on the pricing page, we are supposed to see what we did. All right, so we have the pricing plan as a title. So the next thing we are going to do is to loop through all the pricing plans. So we are going to have this here. So let's create a div. So this is going to be the div that is going to contain or wrap around all these elements, okay? And have this piece of code. So we are going to loop through the pricing plans using the map function. And this is going to have two callback, the plan and also the index. So we are going to have a div, this div here. Let me copy that. Copy this whole div and paste it over here. So we would have to import a couple of things. And you have to import the check icon and the button from the UI folder. So the check icon is going to come from Lucid React. So I'll have that imported, check icon. And you're going to have the button imported from the UI component. And we give this a save and go back to localhost port 3001. You can see we have all these pricing plans updated and you can see them over here. Next, we are going to make these buttons functionable. When a user clicks on choose plan, it should show us a page from Stripe that a user can enter their credit card and make a payment for the plan. So let's move back to the code, and over here we are going to have an onClick event. So the onClick event is going to be the function to handle the to handle the subscription. So we are first going to check. So let's create the function. The name of the function is going to be handle subscribed. We are here to create this function, handle subscribe. We have plan dot price ID. So this plan ID is going to come from Stripe. So we are going to have that. So this is the pricing plan that I created for the project. You get rid of that and set it up from Stripe. Okay, so we have the pricing ID. Let's work on this actual function to handle the subscribe. So inside here, we are going to create the function to subscribe a plan to a plan. So the function is going to so let's create a function, handle subscribe, an async function with the price ID as a parameter, the type of string. And here we are going to check something here. So let's create this state. So the first state is going to be if a user has signed in, and the second state is going to be it's loading to keep track of whether a user has clicked on the pricing plan or not. So we are going to get the signed in state from the use user hook from Clerk Next.js. So to do that, we are going to have this here. So let's create a constant and called use user from Clerk Next.js. I'll click on that. And we are going to get all these objects, distract them, a signed in, and the user object as a whole. And the next state is going to be the is loading state. So you have a constant, you have is loading, set is loading, and we have use state to be false. The default value should be false. So let's import use state from React. Oops, use state and use effect from React. So we have that, and let's check. So we are going to check if a user has signed in. So if not is signed in, we want to return. We don't want this function to execute. We return from when the user click on this function. Else, we want to set its loading state to true so that we can show a spinner or an animation or an indication whether the process is initiating. So once we have that, we write the try catch block to handle errors and to catch any errors that may appear. So let's create a constant named response here. Await fetch API create checkout session. And you're going to have this object. Where did we get this from? So as soon as a user clicks on this button, the handle subscribe button, this one here, we want to send a post request to this endpoint, right? We haven't created it yet, but we are going to create it in a second. So we send a post request to this endpoint. So this function is going to handle the creation of the subscription for the said user. So the method is going to be a post. So you have method to be post, and we add headers. It's going to be an object. You're going to have the content type to be application JSON, and you're going to have a body. So the body is going to be the price ID and the user ID. So we are going to stringify everything using the JSON.stringify function. We provide this object. So we have price ID, right? And we have user ID. User ID to be the user.id. So remember, we are getting this user from the hook, the user hook here, this whole user object. So you send that as a body to the post request or to this endpoint. So you're going to create this endpoint and handle everything that we are sending. Okay. So next, we are going to check if there is no response. So if response dot okay, so we are negating everything here. So if the response is not okay, right? So after we are done sending this to the this endpoint, we get a response back, right? So if the response is not okay, it means we had an error. So we are going to have this code here, create a constant for the error, and throw a new error. So we have this code here. Else, we want to get the section ID from the response.json. So section ID from await, so we await that from response as an async operation .json. So the section ID is going to be distracted from the response. So when we create the endpoint, you're going to understand where all these are coming from. And create a constant for Stripe. Okay. And we are going to load Stripe. So load Stripe. We don't have Stripe imported yet. So we are going to install the Stripe package to be able to use that. So the Stripe package is this package here. We are going to type yarn add at stripe/stripe.js. So this is the package that's going to help us load Stripe and handle any redirection and all that. You're going to have load Stripe. So let's import that over here. From Stripe.js. You're going to have the load Stripe function here. Inside this function, you're going to pass in the Stripe publishable key. So I think let's create that and import it later on. So process.env, we're going to have next public, next public, Stripe publishable key. We don't have that created yet. So let's add this exclamation mark to get rid of this error. So once we are done initializing Stripe, we want to do this. So we check first if the Stripe has been initialized successfully. So if not Stripe, we have to throw this error. And if the Stripe was able to initialize, we are going to redirect. So we have stripe.redirect to checkout, and we pass in the section ID. Inside the catch block, we are going to have this, and we are going to have a finally to set is loading to false. I know this code might look a little bit confusing, but just hang on with me. We are going to get everything when we create the endpoint here and also the Stripe webhook. So next on the list is to work on the Stripe, this endpoint here, this API create checkout section, and create the hook to have all the pieces joined together. So inside this API directory, let's create this new folder named create checkout section. And we have to add the key here, checkout, else this is not going to work. The checkout section is supposed to be the same. Create checkout section and create a route.typescript file here. Before we even start writing the code for this page, I want us to get the Stripe publishable key first and continue with the route page. Let me just paste that here. And we are going to visit Stripe to get our publishable key. So let's search for Stripe and click on this link here. So let's click on this dashboard link, which is going to take us to the dashboard. Before you can see this dashboard, you have to create an account on Stripe. So if you haven't done that, kindly do that before you come back to watch this section. On the left-hand side here, I'm going to click on this button here, which is going to show a drop-down of all the applications I've created with my Stripe account. So I'll click on create a new account and named it threadcraft_AI. The country of operations, I'm going to leave it to the default one and create the account. To confirm your account has been created, you check this section here to see if the name here matches the one you created. If that is not the case, click on this button to select it manually. So I'll just leave it like this. And to get the publishable key, I will move to this section here. And we have for developers. So I'll click on the publishable key, copy that, move back to my code editor and paste it over here. So this key is needed to initialize the Stripe payment. Over here, the pricing page, at this section here, where we initialize the Stripe. So we need that, and let's move on to the route.ts. So inside here, we are going to import next response from next server and import Stripe. Okay, from Stripe. So we have to install it by running yarn add Stripe. So to remind ourselves, this is the page that is going to handle the create checkout section. So when the user clicks on this button, this choose plan button, it is going to trigger this function. called the handle subscribe. And this function is going to send a request to this endpoint, which we are creating over here. And in this endpoint, we are going to get things like the price ID, the user ID, and also set the mode of subscription, the payment method types, and all the other configuration for Stripe. So we have Stripe imported over here. We are going to create a constant named Stripe to initialize Stripe. So we have Stripe initialized, and we have process.env.stripe secret. So we need the secret key to initialize Stripe. So to get the Stripe secret key, copy this same name here, paste it in the .env.local file, and paste it over here. So to get the secret key, move back to the Stripe dashboard, and we click on this secret key over here. So we view key and copy it to the clipboard. I'll paste it over here, give it a save, and that will be it for the Stripe secret key. So back to the route page, we have the secret key loaded in the .env, so this is going to work. So we have to provide the API version. This is important, and we have API version to be this one here. So we have the post request here. Function. We have the post. This is a post request. So you're going to have the request callback to be request. And here we're going to have the try catch block. So inside this try catch block, remember at the pricing page, we are stringifying this object, the price ID and the user ID. So we are going to distract those here, the constant. We await for all the requests.json. So we get all those objects from the request.json and distract the price ID and the user ID. We are going to need that. So after we are done distracting, so you're going to have a check here. If not price ID or if not user ID, we want to return this. We want to return next response.json to have this error here, missing price ID or user ID. Else, we want to create a section, right? You want to create a section. So if you want to know what to do next, we have to check this documentation page. Let's search for Stripe, check out section example. And on this page here, how to set up the section, get the subscription ID and all that. So I'll place this link in the description so you can have a detailed understanding of how we are setting up the route this way. So we create a constant to hold the section, and we have await stripe.checkout.section.create. So we create the mode, which is going to be subscription, and the payment method types is going to be card. So we have a whole lot of payment method type. So we have card, and we have Amazon Pay and all these other payment methods. So we are going to go with the card for this project. And we have line items, right? So the line items is an object that has the price. So we are going to get the price from the price ID over here, which we are yet to create. So we are going to create that very soon. And we are going to, have the quantity. So the quantity is going to be 1. And we are going to have the success URL. So next, we are going to create the success URL and the cancel URL. So I'll paste those over here. And we have to create a next public base URL. So over here in the .env, we are going to create that. And the base URL, remember, should be a URL that has been exposed to the internet. So if you write localhost port 3001, we won't be able to test the Stripe webhook, which we are going to create in a second. So the base URL is supposed to be this one here. The URL exposed to the internet. So I'll paste that here, give it a save, and move back to the route page. And same for the cancel URL, which is going to send the user back to the pricing page. And the last property you're going to set here is the client reference ID, which is going to be the user ID. Remember, we are passing the user ID here. User ID here, price and user ID. So we have that. Give this a save and return. We are going to return this next response with the section ID. So we have that code over here. And inside the catch block, we are going to log or return any next response error here. So we console.log the error here, and we return this next response. So let's make the error type of any to get rid of this error. And we are done creating the route for the create checkout section. So now the next thing we are going to do is to get the pricing ID, these IDs, the price IDs, and set up the payment. So back to Stripe, we can create products. So let's create a product. Where is it? So on this page, let's go to the payment page. Product catalog instead. And we don't have any product here. So let's create a new product. So the name of the product is going to be, let's make it Threadcraft AI payment plan, and leave the description. You're going to leave the upload here, and this should be recurring because we want to charge the user on a monthly basis. And if you want it to be a one-time payment, you click on one-off. So we are going to leave it at recurring. The price for the first product is going to be $9, and we are going to bill monthly. So let's add the product. So we have the product here. And when we click on this product, we should be able to get the price ID. Inside the product, let's click on the price. And we have the price ID somewhere here. All right, so we have the price ID here. We click on it to copy it, paste it inside this side here. Inside the pricing page, the price ID, you paste this and move back to products, catalogs, and create a new payment plan. So I made it plan. So I just have to edit the name to make it plan instead of plan. Update product. Move back to the product catalog, add a new product. And this is going to be Threadcraft AI payment plan. The price for this is going to be $29, recurring, monthly, and I'll click on add product. We have a second payment plan. Click on that. Click on price and get the price ID over here. Copy it and paste it at this side. Beautiful. So we have the price ID here. And so I think we should test this out. So let's see if we can spin up the payment page for Stripe payment. So let's move to the pricing page and add these things here. So inside the button, let's add this. We add this. So we check if the user has clicked on this button and we are in the loading state, we write processing. Else, we have the choose plan as the default text for this button. And we are also going to disable this button if you don't have a price ID. So let's add this line here to check if we are loading or we don't have a price ID, we disable this button. So let's save this. And if everything goes as planned, we should see a pricing page pop up on the when we click on the choose plan. So fingers crossed, let's test this out to see if you'll be able to show the pricing page inside this application. So let's move to the this URL here. The one we exposed the localhost port 3000 on. Let's refresh it. And try to sign in if you haven't already. So let's refresh it to see if you have signed in. So we have signed in. Let's click on the pricing page. So on this page, let's try and see if we can set up the basic plan. So let's click on choose plan for the basic plan. And lo and behold, we have a Stripe payment page shown up here. This is beautiful and amazing. It's a huge milestone for this project. Next on the list is to create a webhook that is going to store the subscription information inside our database anytime a user subscribes. So let's move back to the code editor. Back to code editor, and inside the webhook folder, we have Clerk and Stripe. We already set up the Clerk webhook. So let's work on the Stripe webhook for now. I'll create a new file named route. And inside here, we are going to have our webhook set up. So this page is going to look very similar to what we did at the endpoint for create checkout session. So we are going to import Stripe, we are going to import Next response and some other functions. So let me just copy the headers here. Stripe and Next response, paste it over here and import headers. We would need headers from Next headers. And we are going to initialize Stripe. So I'll copy this exact code here and paste it over here and create a post request function. So we have the same function here and we are going to write the body of the function. Inside this function, we want to create a constant body, which is going to hold the request.test. So I wait request.test. So on Stripe dashboard, we are going to create a webhook, and anytime a user subscribes, we are going to get a request.test from Stripe. Okay, that's what we are doing over here. And we create a constant for signature, which is going to be headers.get Stripe signature. We have that here. We give that a save and we check if the signature doesn't exist, we throw an error. So if signature doesn't exist, we console.log an error and return next response. Let's create a variable to hold event. So events in Stripe are a set of events that happens when a user takes an action. So an example of event could be a user has created a subscription or canceled a subscription or updated a subscription. We create a variable event and we are getting this event type from Stripe, the one we imported over here. And we are going to have a try catch block here. So the event variable is going to be used later in this code, and I'm going to explain everything for you. So inside this try catch block, we are going to have the event. We are going to have the event variable that we created. So we have the event variable here inside this try event equals stripe dot webhooks dot construct event, and we have the body, we have the signature, and we have the stripe webhook secret. Let's go get that. The stripe webhook secret. Give this a save, and it's back to our .m.local. Paste that here. So back to the Stripe dashboard, we are going to search for webhook over here and click on this link here, developers webhooks. Click on that, and inside this page we are going to create a webhook. So we set up an endpoint, and this endpoint is going to be the localhost port 3001 that we exposed to the internet. So I'll copy this URL, paste it here, and append API webhooks /stripe. So once we add this endpoint URL, we scroll down to add event. So what event do we want to listen to? We want to listen to checkout event. So I'll click on all the checkout events over here. That is what we are interested in. And then you can read more on events and see which might be the best one for you. Or maybe later on you decide to improve this project and read more on this event. So I'll click on add event, add endpoint, and we have our webhook created. So we need a sign-in secret. We review that, copy this back to back to the .m file. We paste that over here to continue with the code. So we have the Stripe webhook secret being added to our .m variables. So here we are going to have this code. So if we don't have the secret set up or the signature being not verified, we want to log these errors. Let's change the error to ERR and make the type any. Awesome. So we have that created. So next, we are going to have this condition here. If event.type equals checkout section dot completed. That means if a user has successfully registered or subscribed to our platform, we want to do the following. So we want to store the session, the user ID, and the subscription ID in this variable. So I'll have those variables. So I'll paste those variables here. And so we have the section, user ID, and the subscription ID. We have them stored. We check if the user ID and the subscription ID doesn't exist, then we throw an error. So that is what we have over here. And have a try-catch block. Inside this try-catch block, we are going to create a constant to hold the subscription. Okay. To hold the subscription using the subscription ID. So we have the subscription. We get that from Stripe subscription.retrieve with the subscription ID. So as soon as we have that variable created, we are going to check if we don't have any subscription found. We are going to throw this error. No item found in the subscription. Then we create a variable for the price ID. with the subscription.item.data.price_id. So we get the price ID on this object and create a variable to store the plan and also the points to add when the user subscribe. So these variables here, we have the plan and the points to add. So now when the user clicks on the plan, this is what we want to do. Using the price ID, we want to have a switch statement that is going to compare the price ID. So if we are on this price ID, this one over here, we want to make the plan, this variable that we created here, the plan to be basic and the points to add to be 10. And if we are on a pro, we want to make the price, we want to make the plan price and also the points to add 500. All right. So I'll paste that switch statement code here and change these price IDs. So for the $9, copy this price ID, place it with this one. Do same for the 90 for the pro plan. You place it here and you have that switch. So if the price ID is this, you're going to have these variables change to basic and points to add to be 100. All right. So now after we are done getting the plan, the subscription ID and the user ID, we can insert the plan inside our database. So we are going to create a function in the actions file to create or update a subscription. So we create a constant update subscription equals await create or update subscription, which we don't have yet. So let's go ahead and create this function inside the actions to create or update subscription. All right, so back to the actions file, we will create this function. So we have the function here, export async function, create or update subscription. And this function is going to have these as the argument. So we're going to have the user ID, and that is going to be a string. We're also going to have the Stripe subscription ID. Stripe subscription ID to be a string. We are going to have the plan, either basic, pro, or enterprise, to be a string as well. We have the status is going to be a string. And we have the current period start to be a date. Date, and the current period end to also be a date. So we have this, and inside the function body, we are going to have our try catch block as usual. And inside this try catch block, we are going to create a constant that is going to check whether a user was found with that specific subscription ID or not. So over here, we are going to create this constant. We give it a name, users. So what we are doing here is to get the ID from the users table, where the users.stripe customer ID is equal to the user ID we are getting from the create or update subscription. So the checkings is going to be like this. If there is no user, so this is going to return a true or false. So if there is no user, we want to console.log this error here, meaning we couldn't find a user with this Stripe customer ID. Else, we want to check if there is an existing subscription. Okay, so we have this constant here named existing subscription, and what we are doing here is to and we are going to check wherever the subscription.stripe subscription ID equals the Stripe subscription ID that we are getting from this this function. So this is a column in the database, and this is coming from this argument over here. So we have that, and this is going to return an array of existing subscription. So if there is a subscription available we want to update the subscription. So we are going to have a variable created, and the name of the variable is going to be subscription. So we create a variable name, a variable subscription, and we are going to have a check here. So if existing subscriptions, as I mentioned, this is going to return an array. So we are going to check if the length is greater than 0, meaning we have a list of subscription for the user, from the user. So we are going to update this field, the subscription field, with the plan, status, current period start, and current period end. So I'll paste that code over here, and we have the subscription, await update subscription table, and we set the plan column, the status column, the current period start column, and the current period end column to we update it inside the subscription schema. So we are getting all these from the argument of this function. So this is going to update the function if you have a list of subscription, else we create a new subscription. So to create a new subscription, we are going to have this code here, this piece of code, which is going to insert, inside the subscription schema, all these values. So the user ID, Stripe customer ID, the plan status, current period, and current period end, and execute this function and return subscription. So at the catch block, we are going to have this piece of code, which is going to log an error if we fail to create or update a subscription. So let's go over one more time. What we are doing here is to check if there is no user, then we log this error. Else we check for an existing subscription, right? So we check for an existing subscription, which is going to return an array to this variable. So if the array in this variable is greater than 0, meaning we are getting a data coming from the database, right? We want to update the subscription with at where the subscription Stripe subscription ID is equal to the Stripe subscription ID. So we are checking whether the subscription or Stripe subscription ID is equal to the Stripe subscription ID we are getting from this function, this argument here, and we update the subscription. Else, meaning we don't have any subscription yet, so we create a new one. That's going to be it for this function. I'll give this a save and move back to the this side here, the Stripe routes page. So inside this function here, we are going to provide the user ID. We are also going to pass in the subscription ID, the plan, and for the status, we are going to provide active. And we have these new dates here to register the time at which the subscription started and ended. So we have those here. So let's call this function create or update subscription. We have that function called. And next, let's have this if statement to check if we aren't able to update the subscription. Let's throw this error to prevent the application from stopping. So updated subscription. So let's add a D here. So this is supposed to be updated subscription. So we check if the subscription wasn't updated properly. We handle the error gracefully to prevent the application from breaking. And the next thing we are going to do here is after we are done updating or creating the subscription, we have to add the user point. The next thing we are going to do is to update the points. So for a basic plan, the user gets 100 points, and for the pro plan, the user gets, I think, 500 points, right? So let's create a function to do just that. So await, update user point, and we are going to create this function inside the actions. So back to actions, we are going to have this function. So let's create the function skeleton. So async function and update user point, and we are expecting this argument, the user ID, to be string, for the type to be string, the point to be a number. And we are going to update the user table with the points that are supposed to be rewarded to the user based on the subscription plan activated. So we are going to have that here. And over here, we are updating the users table. So what we are doing here is to update the point with the already existing point that the user have with the current new point coming from this function, at where the user.stripe customer ID equals the user ID. We return and execute, and if there is any error, we are going to log this to the console. We give this a save. Back to the route for the Stripe. So we call the function here update user point. Provide them with all the necessary arguments that are required. So the arguments are going to be the user ID and the point to add. So remember here inside the switch statement, we had this variable here, points to add. So based on the price ID, we update the point to add variable. So that is going to be passed down to this function. And in the catch block for this function, we are going to throw any error that may happen. Okay, so we have that, and finally we are going to return next response .json received to be true. So what this line is doing here is to send a JSON response with a key received. So this key received being set to true, indicating that the request was successfully received and processed. So we give this a save, and I think we can try this out to see if we are going to get the points updated inside the database after we are done subscribing to the application. This URL here, refresh the page and try to purchase a plan. So let's try to subscribe to the basic plan. We are in the testing mode and we can use an actual credit card. So let's paste this number here. So we add a month and a year. So let's make this 2026. The CVC can be any number, and we can subscribe. So we add an email and a card name and try to subscribe. So before we check whether this works or not, let's move back to the pricing page. And pricing page here. Nope. Let's move to the create checkout session route file here. Yes. Inside this file, remember, after a user has successfully subscribed to the platform, we are taking them to the generate page, right? Which happens to be the dashboard as well. We don't have this page yet. That is why we have this error here saying page not found. So we are going to add this later on, but let's check if the subscription points were added or not. So back in the database, Neon console, let's refresh this page. And when we check the points, we see 150 here. So meaning the subscription worked. A user is awarded 50 points to test the application out, and for the basic plan, we have 100 points to be added to the already existing points. We now have 150, so meaning it worked. Let's move to the subscription table to check what we have inside. Inside the subscription table, we have a subscription, and it happens to be the basic plan that we created. This is awesome. The plan is working, the subscription is working. Let's move back to the code editor and create the generate page. So inside the app directory, we are going to create this folder named generate. Let's create a file named page.tsx. Before we start writing the code for this dashboard, when we check the published website, Threadcraft AI, let me search that here, threadcraftai.netlify.app. When we click on the dashboard, you can see we have a card. We have a card here. We have input elements, and we have a test area, right? We have a test area. We also have a select to, choose the content type and all that. So to do this, we will need to install all these components from shardcn, right? So inside shardcn, we are going to search for input, copy the code, move back here, paste it inside the terminal to install it. And we are also going to search for test area. Copy it, paste it here. We are going to search for select. Paste it here. And we are going to have a card. Click on this side to copy it. Paste it inside my terminal to install. Awesome. So we have everything installed. So we have installed all the packages from shardcn. So let's import them here. We have the button, input, test area, and select. And let's move here. So let's write the code for the main component. So this is what we are trying to build. So when we check this here, we have the dashboard. We have the history section here, which lists all the history of the content created by the user. We have the point card here, and we have this content form to help the user create their content. So we are going to create a div to contain all the elements in this page. So we return this component, and we are going to have this div here, which is going to be the parent div for all the content. So the first element we are going to import is going to be the navbar. We are going to need the navbar here. So let's import that. Move back to the localhost port 3001. Sign in and click on dashboard. Click on dashboard, and we have the navbar. Beautiful. So let's create the rest of the elements. These ones here. Okay. So back to my code editor. So let's have this div here. So what this div is going to do is to display the content in a grid form. So as we can see, we have the grid here. So now we can create the history section. This one over here. I'll copy this code here. So we have the code here. So I'll add this comment here. Left sidebar. History section. So for the history section, we need a clock icon. This icon here. And we are going to import that from Lucid React. So back here, import to Lucid React. We are going to import the clock icon. Clock imported from Lucid React. So we save this, and back to localhost port 3001, we have the history section here. So inside this history section, we are going to have a list of all the histories, right? And for now, we don't have any history. So for the history section, anytime a user creates a new content, we save the content inside our database, which is later on going to be displayed as the history. So we are going to get back here and generate all the histories. Let's write histories here to list all the histories for the history section. And the next thing we are going to create here is the main div. So right after the history section div, let's create another div, giving it a comment name, main container area. And we are going to have the main div over here. So for the main div, we are going to have this div here. And inside this div, we have the point to be displayed. So the first element in this div is going to be the point to be displayed. So we create that as well. And I'll copy that code here and paste it at this side. So we are going to have that. Let's add a comment, point, display, and have the code here. So for this part, we need to import the zap icon, this one here. Let's import it from Lucid React. So we have zap icon. And we also have to import link from Next.js. So link. And when we give this a save and check our localhost port 3001, we have the available point over here. So when the user click on get more points, they are being taken to the pricing page. So that's what we have here. So later on, we are going to display the points from the database. Okay. And right after the point div section, we are going to create another div to have the content generation form. So content generation form. So for the content generation form, we are going to have this div here. So inside this div, we are going to create this section here, this drop down. When a user clicks on this content type, we have the Twitter icon and the name, the title here. We have the Instagram icon and the caption, LinkedIn post, and the title. So let's create that. Before we create the content drop down, let's create this constant here. So up at the top here, way before the export default function, we are going to have this array here. So we create a constant named content type. The content type is going to be an array of objects. You're going to have a value and a label, right? So the value and a label. So you have Twitter, you have Instagram, and LinkedIn. So back to the content generation form. Let's list all the content type in a select form. So I'll paste that code here. And we have to import all these icons from Lucid React. So Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Awesome. So we have these icons imported. So let's comment these out, and we are going to create these functions in a second. I will comment this and save it. Move back to localhost port 3001. And we have the drop down here. So next is to have the form that is going to generate the content based on the content type selected. So back to my code. So let's create the form for that. And the form is going to be at this section. I'll minimize this. But before that, I think we should work on the set content type and the content type state before we create the form. So this is just a state. We are going to create a state for content type. And set content type. To have a use state. And the default value is going to be the first element in the content type array. So we have that. And we have to import the use state from React. So use state from React and use effect. We give that a save and move back to this section here. Minimize, uncomment this out and minimize it over here. So for the form, we are going to have this div here. So you have to create a state for the prompt and set prompt. We are going to create that over here. So you have the state, and when we save this, so we do it use client, and the error is going to go away. And boom, we have it inside this main div. Beautiful. So looking exactly like this one already. So the next thing we are going to do is when a user click on a content type, so for example, an Instagram caption, we display an upload icon here for the user to upload an image to generate a caption. And I think that is the only use case where we would need to upload an image. So we are going to create a section that is going to check for the content type. To check if the content type is Instagram, we display this upload icon. So we have that here. And we are going to create the handle image upload and also create the state to display the image if we upload an image. All right, so let's work on the handle image upload or the Instagram content type. So the handle image upload function is going to be a very simple function. We are going to have that here and have a check for the files property on the target object. If that is set, meaning we have an image uploaded. So we are going to have a set image state here to contain the path to the uploaded image so that we can render it or pass it to the Gemini AI to generate the content for us. I'll save this and when I move back to the code, select Instagram, we have the upload image button here. So next, let's create this button, generate content button for 5 points. And we create the section to display the content after a user has generated them. So this is the button that is going to help us generate content using Gemini AI. So we have a couple of things to configure. First being the handle generate function. We have to have its loading state, user points, and this constant here, points per generation. So we are going to create all these. So first, let's import the loader 2 icon from Lucid React and create this state. So back to this side here, we are going to have the points. So let's check what are missing here. We have to get the user point. So we need a state for that. And we are going to have a constant named points per generation. Which points you're going to deduct anytime a user generates a content. Those constants here. We have the points per generation to be 5. And we also have this content here, mass tweet length, to restrain the AI from generating more than 280 characters for Twitter. So next thing, I think we have to create the handle generate function. We have to create the handle generate function. So back here, So this is the handle generate function. So there is a whole lot going on here, and everything is going to be explained line by line so that we understand the whole flow of generating the content. So first thing first, we have to install the Google Generative AI package. So I'll install that here. And add Google Generative AI. Whilst we wait for this to get installed, let's move back to this section here and search for Gemini API key. Clicking on this link is going to take us to the Gemini API Studio to get our key. So on this page, we are going to generate an API key. But before that, let's move back to the documentation page. On this page, you can learn on how to set up the Gemini API and create a function to interact with the model. When we click on Gemini models at the model section here, it shows us all the varieties of model they have, each of them with their input types, output types, and what they are being optimized for. So you can read more about this at this documentation section. We are going to be interested in text generation. So this is the documentation we are going to use to set up the Gemini API in our project. So I will link this in the description. Back to our code editor. So we have the Google Generative AI package installed. I'll import that here. So we are going to import the Google Generative AI and parts from Google Generative AI. And the next thing we are going to do is to set up the API key and initialize the Gemini AI. So at the top here, we are going to paste this code here. And the first line is to get the Gemini API key from the environment variables. And the second line is to initialize Google Generative AI with the API key. So let's get the API key. So on this page, we are going to click on Get API Key, Create API Key, and select a project and generate the API key. We copy the code, move back to our .env file. We paste the code here, and we are going to copy this variable name, next public Gemini API key. Where is it? So we have that here. Paste it and give it a save. So let's go ahead and explain this function line by line. So we are checking if the generative AI has been initialized. That's what you're checking here. Or if there is a user ID. So let's get the user ID. So for the user object, we are going to use the use user hook from Clerk Authentication. So at this side here, we are going to paste this code and call the use user hook from Clerk. So this is going to get us the user object. So we have other properties distracted from the hook, like there is signed in and is loaded. So these are going to be important later on in this code. So for the user object, we can access the ID. So we check if the generative AI has been initialized, or the user ID has been initialized, or the user point equals null, or the user point is less than points per generation. So we check this, and if any of these has not been initialized successfully, we are going to alert through this alert that says not enough points or API key not set, and return from this function. So we don't go ahead to generate anything at all. So right after this check, we set the loading state to true, meaning we have started the generation process. And inside this try catch block, so on this line here, we have the model variable, which is going to hold the initialization of this Gemini AI dot get generative model. So for this project, we are using the Gemini 1.5 Pro. Back to the documentation site, you can read more about the models, their strength, and the best use cases, right? You can read more about them at the Gemini section here. All right, so you can read more about them over here. So let's continue on with the rest of the function. So right after getting the model, we are going to create a variable to hold the prompt text. So we have a template string that starts with generate, and we have the content type here, which is going to be the content type the user has selected. So we say generate content type, so it could be LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. So generate Twitter content about, then we provide the prompt as a variable here. Remember, the prompt is going to be here. So anything the user types in this text area is going to be the prompt. So back to this side, we check if the content type equals Twitter. We provide an additional prompt saying provide a thread of 5 tweets, each under 280 characters. So at this part, we create a variable named image part. So we check if the content type is Instagram and we have an image uploaded. We want to create a file reader stream. So we initialize this file reader, store it in this variable. So what this function is doing here is to read the image data, and we are going to get the base64 data from the image data that has been read using this function. So we check if the base64 string exists, we create an image part. So as we can see here, that image part, we have the image part variable here, which is going to be the path of the image and also the MIME type of the image. So we check if the base64 data exists. So we have the image path object, and inside that object, we create another object named inline data. So the Gemini AI needs that. So we have the inline data here. And the first property is going to be data, which is supposed to be a base64 string, as we can see here, base64 string, and a MIME type, which is going to determine the type of the image, being it JPEG, PNG, or any other MIME type. So we check all that for the if the content type is Instagram. And if that is the case, we append this to the prompt. So generate an Instagram content about, we add the prompt, and we add describe the image and incorporate it into the caption. So this is going to generate the Instagram caption for us. So over here, we initialize the image path with the prompt text, and if there is an image path, we push it to the path using the image path. So if we have multiple images uploaded, we are going to generate the content based on that. And the generated text is going to be stored in this variable here, and we can get the text itself on the text function on the response object. So that is going to be saved here. So over here, we are going to check if the content type is Twitter and split the generated text by double new lines to separate the tweets. And also, we are going to filter out any empty tweet after trimming the white space. And else, for any other content type, we are going to wrap the generated text in an array. So we need this state to store the generated content. We create that over here. So after generating the content, we save it in the set generated content state. So after generating the content, we want to update the user points using the user ID and the points per generation. So in this case, it's going to be 5. Remember, we already have this function created. So when we check the actions, you can see we have the function created. This was created when we were writing the code for the hook, this side here, webhook for the stripe, update user points, this section here, this side here. All right. So let's close this and back to the generate. We just have to call the function, import it to update user points, and we are good to go. So this function returns an updated user, and we are going to set the updated point to the set user point state. So we have that state created here, set user point state. And after generating this content, we want to save it inside our database, right? So we are going to create this function in the actions file, save generated content. So to the actions file, utils db actions, we are going to create that function. So we have that function here. And all we are doing, so in this function, we have the user ID, the content prompt, and content type as arguments. So we have so we are going to insert it inside the generated content table. So the values are going to be the user ID. We get that from selecting the ID from the users table, where the Stripe customer ID equals the user ID we are going to get from this argument. We save the content, the prompt, the content type, append the returning function, execute function, and return the saved content. So we save this, move back to generate, and call this function here, save generate content. All right. So if the content was saved successfully, we want to update the history state to display it in real time at the history section. At the history section over here. So we are going to create the state for the history. We scroll to the side. And we have to create a type for the history. So the history type is going to be this. An ID content type, a prompt content, and created at date. So we have that. So that is going to set the saved content in the history in real time. So let's have these use effects here that are going to check if we have an API key set. So the first one has to do with checking if we have an API key set. If that is not the case, we throw this error at the console. So this second hook is going to check if the user data is loaded and the user is not signed in. We redirect them to the home page. Else, if the user is signed in and data is available, we fetch the user point and the content history. So let's get this router imported. So we are going to use router. So we are going to have a constant here. Router equals use router from next navigation. So we save it, and that is going to handle the redirection for us. So let's create the fetch user points function and fetch content history. And this function is just going to get the user points. If the ID exists, we get the user points using the get user points function. So let's create this function in the actions file. So actions, we are going to create the get user points function. So that function is going to have the user ID, and we are going to select the points, the user ID, and the email from the users table and check where the users.stripe customer ID equals the user ID. We return all the data that we have. So if a user exists, we return with 0. Else, we are going to return the user and get the points. So this is going to return the points for us, giving a user ID. So back to the generate page, we can import that function. So get user points, provide the user ID as required in the function, and this is going to return the points for us. If the point equals 0, we attempt to create or update a user. So let's import this function here, create or update user. And we are going to set the user points. So after we are done checking all these, we set the user points with the updated user.point. We give this a save. and create the fetch content history function. So this is the function. And what we are doing here is to call this function, which we are yet to create in the actions file, get generated content history and set it to the history state. So let's create that function. So back to the actions, we are going to create that get generated content history. We paste that here. So what this function is doing is to get the user ID, and we have a limit with default number of 10. So over here, we get the history, we select the ID, content, prompt, content type, and created at from the generated content table. We check wherever the generated content.user_id equals the user ID, because we want to list all the history of the logged in user and not any user at all. So we list them in descending order. So the recent one are going to come first. We have the limit, which by default is 10, unless we add an argument to list more, and we return the history. Give it a save. Back to the generate page, we import that function. Get generated content history. So we are going to have these two checks here. Over here, we are going to have these two checks. And what we are checking for is the first check is to check if the content is loaded. If not, we are going to display this loading message. And this is going to check if the user has not signed in. We display this div here that will ask them to sign in or sign up. So let's call this sign in button from Clerk auth. So sign in button from Clerk Next.js. Give it a save and move to this section. So this is going to be the section to display the generated content. And when the user clicks on a history, back here, when the user clicks on a history, we display the history items here. So this div is going to take care of that. We check for selected content and we display the history, or we display the actual content generated. So we have a lot of things we have to take care of. We have the selected history item. Let's take care of that. That's going to be a state. We are going to create that state over here. Let's collapse some of these functions to have more room. Selected history item. And we are going to create a function that is going to help us copy to clipboard. So let's first create this icon here from React, copy icon, create this function, and import React Markdown. So most of the times, the content generated by the AI is a Markdown. So we have to convert them to a normal text. And this package is going to help us convert them into an HTML element that can be displayed beautifully at the front end. So let's create the copy to clipboard function while we install the React Markdown. So to install the React Markdown, we have yarn add React Markdown, and let's create the copy to clipboard function. So I'll paste that function here. So we are using the clipboard API to write to the clipboard using the navigator.clipboard.write text. So I'll save that, move back to this side here. So let's import the React Markdown somewhere over here. And import the React Markdown. So I think it's time to test everything out if we will be able to generate a content using the Gemini AI. So back to the dashboard, we have available point 150. So we are getting the points from the database. And we have the history section here. Let's try and generate a Twitter thread. So a thread on how to make money, and click on generate content. And we have the content generated. Awesome. So it's been saved in the history as well. We can check the database, check the generated content, refresh it, and we have the Twitter thread content here. Beautiful. So 5 points was deducted from my points. So I have 145 now. And we can see that also here. We can also generate a link in post. So something like a post on how to make money. Click on generate. And it generates for us a content to post on LinkedIn. So we can do same for the Instagram caption. You upload an image and generate a caption. For me, click on generate. And we have a caption. So this is the image I uploaded. This one here. And this is the caption for the image. So more content can be added. You can add a TikTok script. You can add a YouTube script and any other content type that you would wish to add. So things are looking great here. We have the history section and the points are also being deducted as we generate the content. So we can get more points. When we click on get more points, it takes us to the pricing page. So the final thing is to host this on Netlify. I'll search for Netlify. This is the dashboard for Netlify. If you don't have an account with Netlify, create one before you can start deploying a website. So I'll click on add new website, import from existing projects. So before you deploy your project, you have to host the code in one of these platforms, either GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, or Azure DevOps. So my code is on GitHub. I'll click on GitHub. Authorize and search for the name of the project. So I'll search for Threadcraft. Click on this. Give it a site name. So I'll write Threadcraft AI. You want to deploy it from the main branch. We leave everything untouched. So let's deploy the website and import the environment variables instead of typing them manually. So I'll click on deploy Threadcraft AI. Let's get rid of this first and deploy it. On the deploy page, we are going to add the environment variable. So site configuration, scroll to environment variables, add environment variable, import from a .env file. So I'll move back to my code to the .env.local, copy everything here, paste it inside this environment file and import environment variables. So we have to change the next public URL, next public base URL to the one we set when deploying the website. So it's supposed to be Threadcraft AI, this one over here. So I'll click on this link, copy it, and paste it over here to be our base URL. Save the variable. So once we are done updating the next public base URL, we have to move back to Clerk, hooks, webhooks. So configure webhooks and edit the base URL for the webhook. So the endpoint is supposed to be changed. You have to edit it to the deployed website. So this one here. Give it a save. We are also going to do same on Stripe. On the Stripe dashboard, Stripe dashboard. Under the webhook section, we are going to edit this endpoint. We are going to edit this endpoint. Beautiful. Update endpoint. So the reason why we are updating all these endpoints is because, remember, the base URL or the webhooks are supposed to be a URL exposed to the internet. And since we have deployed the website, we have to update it accordingly.